The bombshell at the feast. At a royal feast, Queen Camilla was brutally stripped of her title in front of the entire court. But the person who delivered the devastating blow wasn't an enemy of the crown. It was the king's own sister, Princess Anne. The dark truth behind her shocking betrayal has finally been revealed. In the gilded halls of Buckingham Palace, every smile is a weapon, and every conversation is a careful dance of diplomacy. Behind the velvet curtains and priceless portraits, a secret war has been raging for decades. It is a war of whispers in shadowed corridors, of icy glances exchanged over crystal glasses, a brutal, silent conflict of loyalties forged in the fires of love and unforgivable betrayal. For years, a fragile, chilling peace was maintained through sheer force of will, but that peace was a lie. And on one fateful night, it was destined to shatter. The event was a grand royal feast, a carefully staged piece of theater designed to project an image of absolute unity to a watching world. Beneath golden chandeliers, the monarchy's senior figures gathered, their laughter polite, their toasts rehearsed. At the center of it all sat Queen Camilla, basking in the warm glow of her newfound status, a woman who had finally, after a lifetime of scandal, claimed the ultimate prize. She was triumphant, the survivor of a vicious public war, now seated beside the king. But in the room, another power watched. A power that bows to no one. Princess Anne, the king's own sister, the royal renegade forged from steel and duty, observed the scene with a cold, unwavering gaze. She is the one royal who does not play the game, who fears no reprisal. As Camilla held court, Anne waited. And then, it happened. The polite chatter of the room was sliced apart by a voice that was calm, clear, and utterly lethal. Anne turned her gaze directly to Camilla. The room held its breath. "You are the queen consort," she stated, her words carrying not a hint of anger, but the cold, hard finality of a judge's sentence. Then came the final, brutal blow. Not the queen, a devastating silence descended upon the room. It was an absolute void, a physical presence that crushed the air from every lung. Time stopped. Courtiers, hardened by decades of intrigue, froze in place, their faces a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. Spoons clattered onto priceless china. Every eye was fixed on the two women locked in a silent, deadly battle. This was no slip of the tongue, no clumsy breach of protocol. This was a public execution. It was a declaration of war. In that single, breathtaking moment, a long-simmering Cold War had turned brutally hot, threatening to burn down the very foundations of the House of Windsor. The whispers had finally been given a voice, and the dark, ugly truth of the family's deepest, most poisonous division was laid bare for all to see. The nightmare was just beginning. Anne's words were far more than a simple insult. They were a direct, devastating challenge to the very legitimacy of Camilla's reign. But even worse, they were a chilling, public rejection of the final, sacred wish of her own mother, the late Queen Elizabeth II. In the twilight of her historic reign, during her Platinum Jubilee, the beloved monarch had made a carefully orchestrated, deeply personal statement to her people. She had declared her sincere wish that Camilla be known not as princess consort, but as queen consort when the time came. It was meant to be the final word on the matter. It was a decree from a sovereign who had ruled for 70 years, a calculated move designed to smooth the turbulent path for her son, Charles, and to finally put an end to the decades-long, bitter debate over Camilla's status. It was an act of grace, a final attempt to heal the deep wounds that had plagued her family for a generation. It was meant to be the end of the story. But with 9 short words, Princess Anne had torn that sacred decree to shreds. Her brutal public rebuke suggested something far more sinister, that even the dying wish of a queen was not enough to wash away the sins of the past. It implied that Camilla's transgressions were so deep, so unforgivable, that they superseded even the command of the sovereign herself. In the world of the monarchy, the title of queen is not just a word. It is the living embodiment of the nation's soul, a hallowed symbol of divine right and an unbroken lineage stretching back 1,000 years. It is a title steeped in glory, sacrifice, and sacred duty. By pointedly and cruelly demoting Camilla back to consort in front of the entire court, Anne was doing more than correcting a title. She was publicly branding her as an outsider, a usurper, a woman who had married into the family but could never, ever truly belong. She was declaring her unworthy. Suddenly, the entire issue was reframed. This was no longer a dry debate about royal protocol. It was a visceral, emotional trial being conducted in the court of public opinion. Anne had transformed it into a battle of worthiness, a brutal referendum on a lifetime of choices. The battle was no longer about a title on a document. It was about legacy, about memory, and about whether the woman who had once torn the royal family apart, the woman who had caused so much pain to the sainted Princess Diana, could ever truly be allowed to wear its ultimate, most sacred symbol of honor. The battle lines had been drawn in blood. To understand the sheer, breathtaking audacity of Princess Anne's attack, one must first understand the woman herself. She is not like the others. She is a pioneer, a figure forged from pure steel and an unwavering sense of duty. Often called the royal family's most trustworthy cornerstone, Anne has, since the age of 18, undertaken a jaw-dropping 20,000 official engagements, solidifying her reputation as the hardest-working royal by a staggering margin. While others chase popularity and camera flashes, she simply works, relentlessly and without complaint. But her legendary dedication is matched only by her fierce, almost brutal, independence. She is the original royal renegade. In an institution defined by titles and tradition, she was the one who refused them for her own children, Peter and Zara, determined that they should have a chance at a normal life, free from the gilded cage she knew so well. It was an unprecedented act of rebellion, a quiet declaration that she would play by her own rules, not the firm's. And her rebellion is not always quiet. She is the blunt, unfiltered figure who, after an equestrian event in 1982, famously turned to a pack of photographers and snarled two simple words, "Naff off." The incident was a scandal at the time, earning her the sarcastic and cruel moniker from the press, her royal rudeness. The media machine, accustomed to polite smiles and careful deference, tried to paint her as arrogant and dismissive. But a funny thing happened over the decades. The public grew to love her for it. Her unfiltered honesty, once seen as a flaw, is now viewed as her greatest strength, a refreshing, bracing antidote to the carefully managed, PR-spun perfection of other royals. She drives herself to events, a humble rejection of pomp and circumstance. She refuses to shake hands on walkabouts, not out of rudeness, but out of a practical belief that it's impossible to greet everyone properly. She has become a sustainable fashion icon by re-wearing outfits for decades, a clear and defiant statement against the disposable, celebrity-obsessed culture. This is the woman who confronted Camilla, a figure whose immense authority comes not from a crown passed down, but from a lifetime of unshakable, relentless service. Her power is not inherited, it is earned, day by grueling day, in forgotten town halls and rain-soaked charity events across the country. She has a complete and total refusal to play the shallow games of Tinseltown royalty. Her power is absolute precisely because she does not need anyone's approval to wield it, and she is utterly, terrifyingly unafraid to use it. Princess Anne's loyalty to her mother, Queen Elizabeth II, was the stuff of legend. It was a bond that went far beyond the simple duty of a daughter to a monarch. It was a sacred, unbreakable pact, a silent understanding between two women who had dedicated their lives to the same relentless ideal of service. And now palace insiders whisper the dark, jaw-dropping truth. Anne's public stand against Camilla was not a spontaneous act of anger. It was the fulfillment of a promise made long ago. A promise to a dead queen. For years, Anne was one of the few within the inner circle who quietly, but firmly, believed that Camilla should never be more than a consort. Her opposition wasn't born of simple dislike. It was rooted in a fierce, protective instinct for the institution her mother embodied. A palace source, speaking under the condition of anonymity, revealed a shocking secret. In the weeks leading up to the Queen's historic Jubilee announcement, Anne had privately counseled her mother. She had insisted, with all the force of her formidable will, that the title of Queen should be reserved, a final, sacred honor to the sanctity of her mother's historic reign. It was a private battle she was destined to lose. The Queen, ever the pragmatist, chose the path of least resistance to secure a stable future for Charles. But while Anne lost the argument, she never, ever surrendered the war. Her brutal confrontation at the feast was not an impulsive act of spite. It was a cold, calculated, strategic move to defend her mother's true legacy. In Anne's unflinching eyes, Allowing Camilla to fully assume the title was an unforgivable betrayal of everything Queen Elizabeth stood for: duty, sacrifice, and an unbroken vow made before God and country. Camilla, the woman whose scandalous years-long affair with Charles had plunged the monarchy into its darkest days, the woman who had caused the Queen so much private agony and public shame during the infamous Annus Horribilis of 1992, could not be allowed to simply inherit the ultimate prize. It was an insult to history itself. Anne's actions were not those of a petty, jealous sister-in-law. They were the actions of a daughter, fiercely, ruthlessly guarding her mother's memory. She was ensuring that even from beyond the grave, the Queen's sacred honor would not be besmirched, not by the woman who had already cost her and the crown so very much. It was a final act of loyalty, a debt being paid in the most public and devastating way imaginable. But the deep, poisonous roots of Anne and Camilla's bitter rivalry are not buried in the cold soil of palace politics. They are found in the hot ashes of a fiery, forbidden, and ultimately doomed love affair. This is a story that begins long before the crowns and the scandals, back when a young Camilla Shand was in a passionate, on-again, off-again relationship with a dashing, impossibly handsome cavalry officer named Andrew Parker Bowles. But there is a dark, tragic truth to that time that so many people forget, a secret that holds the key to the entire devastating feud. Andrew Parker Bowles was also deeply in love with Princess Anne. For a brief, glittering moment in time, they were a tight-knit, glamorous set, a circle of beautiful, aristocratic young people whose futures seemed impossibly bright and hopelessly intertwined. The connection between Anne and Andrew was electric, a powerful and intense romance. They were a perfect match, both expert equestrians, both possessing a sharp, biting wit and a rebellious, aristocratic spirit. They were equals, and they were in love. It was a fairy tale waiting to be written, but their love story was destined to hit a devastating snag. Then, out of nowhere, a cruel twist of fate derailed everything. Andrew Parker Bowles was a Roman Catholic. Under the rigid, archaic rules of the Act of Settlement of 1701, a draconian law steeped in centuries of bloody religious conflict, no member of the royal family in the direct line of succession could marry a Catholic and retain their place. It was an unbreakable, ancient rule. The institution, that cold and calculating machine known as the firm, stepped in. The relationship was deemed impossible. The message from the palace was swift, brutal, and clear. It had to end. And just like that, their love story was brought to a crushing, heartbreaking end, leaving a young Princess Anne utterly devastated. It was the first great sacrifice she was forced to make for the crown, a deeply personal tragedy that she was expected to bear in silence. But this private heartbreak was not the end of the story. Sadly, it was only the beginning of the end, setting the stage for a far greater, far more personal betrayal that was yet to come. The worst was yet to come. Shortly after his doomed romance with Princess Anne was brutally extinguished by the crown, Andrew Parker Bowles did the unthinkable. He married Camilla Shand. For a heartbroken Anne, this was a devastating, soul-crushing blow. It was a betrayal that cut deeper than anyone could possibly imagine. In a shockingly short span of time, she had not only lost the one man she had truly intended to marry, forced to sacrifice her happiness because of the archaic, unfeeling rules of her station, but now she had to watch him build a life with another woman. And not just any woman, a woman from her own privileged social circle, a constant, painful presence in her world. The marriage was a torment. It was a constant, public reminder of everything she had been forced to give up. Every single society photograph of the happy couple Andrew and Camilla laughing at polo matches, Andrew and Camilla attending glamorous balls, was a fresh, twisting knife in an open wound. It was a public humiliation she was expected to endure with a stiff upper lip and a placid smile. Palace insiders have long whispered that this was the moment the die was cast. This was the original sin from which all the subsequent bitterness and hatred would grow. Anne never, ever truly forgave Camilla for this. While Camilla may not have acted with deliberately malicious intent, in the ruthless, cutthroat world of the British aristocracy, the move was seen for what it was: a ruthless, brilliant checkmate. Camilla had effortlessly secured the man that Anne, a princess of the United Kingdom, could not have. She had won, and in doing so, she had unwittingly made a lifelong, implacable enemy of the king's sister. This single, devastating event poisoned the well between them forever. It created a deep, festering foundation of resentment, envy, and unresolved rage that would lie dormant for decades, festering in the dark, before finally, inevitably, exploding into open, vicious warfare within the palace walls. The consequences were disastrous, but if Anne thought the worst was over, she was tragically mistaken. As if the first brutal betrayal wasn't cruel enough, fate had a second, even more horrific act in store. Years later, after both of their first marriages had spectacularly crumbled under the crushing weight of public scandal and private infidelity, Camilla did what was once truly inconceivable. She married Prince Charles, Anne's older brother, and the future King of England. For Princess Anne, it was a waking nightmare of unbelievable proportions. The woman who had taken her first love, the woman she blamed for a lifetime of quiet heartbreak, was now embedding herself into the very heart of her family. She was no longer just an awkward social acquaintance. She was now family. She was about to become the most powerful woman in the country. She was marrying the crown itself. The media reported that at the subdued, almost mournful, civil ceremony in 2005, Anne's presence was a study in glacial fury. Her posture was painfully stiff, her expression an icy, impenetrable mask of disapproval. Eyewitnesses claimed she largely ignored Camilla, her pointed coldness a silent, damning protest against the entire affair. It was a message to the world that she did not, and would not, ever accept this union. But now, she was trapped. Utterly and completely trapped. She was forced to share Christmas holidays at Sandringham, to sit through endless state dinners, and to witness countless family milestones with the one woman she held responsible for so much of her past pain. It was a torment designed in hell. But even then, in this impossible situation, Anne asserted her dominance. She made it chillingly clear that while Camilla may have married the heir, she had not married his equal. Anne was sure, and let everyone know it, that as a royal by birth, a princess royal, a title of immense historical significance, she held a far higher status than a woman who had merely married into the family. She was a blood member of the ancient and powerful House of Windsor, and she would never, ever let her new sister-in-law forget that she was, and always would be, an outsider who had clawed her way in. The battle for precedence had begun. To truly understand the public's deep-seated, visceral distrust of Camilla, one must remember the beautiful, tragic ghost that still haunts every grand hall of the monarchy: Diana, Princess of Wales. When Camilla first exploded into the public consciousness, it was not as a royal, not as a duchess, but as one thing and one thing only: the other woman. She was instantly cast as the villain in a fairy tale that had gone horribly, devastatingly wrong. She was the reason for the infamous War of the Waleses, the brutal, tabloid-fueled conflict that tore the royal family apart. She was the third person in the marriage, as Diana herself so devastatingly revealed to a stunned world in her bombshell 1995 Panorama interview. In that one moment, Diana sealed Camilla's fate in the court of public opinion forever. The public had fallen completely and utterly in love with Diana. They had watched the shy, doe-eyed Sloane Ranger blossom into a global superstar, a fashion icon, and a compassionate humanitarian who became the undisputed Queen of Hearts. Her tragic, untimely death in a Paris tunnel in 1997 cemented her status as a martyr, a saint betrayed by a callous, unfeeling husband and his calculating, predatory mistress. Against this sainted, almost holy memory, Camilla stood absolutely no chance. She was irrevocably cast as the wicked witch in the national narrative, the cold and calculating woman who had destroyed the dream and broken the heart of England's Rose. So when she finally, years later, married Prince Charles, public opinion was still brutally, savagely against her. The weight of history was a crushing, inescapable burden. No matter how many charities she supported, no matter how many hospitals she visited, no matter how much good she did, she could never, ever escape the long, dark shadow of the woman she had replaced. For millions of people, both in Britain and around the world, Diana would always be the true, rightful queen. Her memory was sacred. And for them, Camilla's eventual ascent to the throne was not a moment of celebration, it was a desecration. It was the ultimate, unforgivable sin. Faced with a nation that despised her, a nation that saw her as a homewrecker and a villain, Camilla did not retreat. She did not hide away in a country estate, licking her wounds. Instead, she embarked on one of the longest, most arduous, and most challenging public relations campaigns in modern history. The slow, painstaking, decade-by-decade rehabilitation of her own shattered image. She threw herself into grueling, unglamorous humanitarian work, deliberately championing causes that were often overlooked by the more high-profile royals. She became a fierce, surprisingly effective advocate for osteoporosis awareness, a disease that had painfully claimed both her mother and grandmother. She became a passionate, deeply committed campaigner for victims of domestic abuse, a dark and difficult subject many in her position would have avoided. She became a tireless promoter of literacy and a staunch defender of animal rights. For years, she worked. Her head down, her demeanor quiet and diligent, she methodically avoided the spotlight, letting her actions, not her words, speak for themselves. And slowly, glacially, over the course of 2 long decades, the public mood began to thaw. The intense, burning hatred began to fade, replaced by a quiet, grudging respect. People started to see not a villain, but a dedicated, surprisingly down-to-earth woman who genuinely cared for her causes and, perhaps most importantly, made their future king genuinely happy. But in a cruel twist of fate, it was never enough. It could never be enough. The beautiful, tragic ghost of Diana was simply too powerful, her memory too sacred in the public imagination. Even with the late queen's final, explicit blessing, and eventually, a priceless crown placed upon her own head, she could never fully win the war for their hearts. Princess Anne's brutal public takedown was the ultimate proof. It was a chilling, devastating reminder that even within the cold stone walls of the palace itself, the weight of history was a debt that could never be fully repaid. Her past was not a chapter that could be closed. It was a life sentence, and she would serve it until her dying day. And at the very center of this raging, destructive storm stands King Charles, a monarch trapped in an utterly impossible position. He is a man caught between the 2 most formidable, unyielding women in his life: his sister, a resolute pillar of the monarchy and the self-appointed keeper of their mother's sacred legacy, and his wife, the woman he has loved obsessively for over 50 years, the woman who is now his queen. His choice is a nightmare. To side with Anne, to publicly support her brutal assessment, would be to publicly delegitimize his own wife. It would trigger a constitutional crisis of unimaginable proportions, and be a humiliating admission that his life's great love, the woman for whom he risked everything, is not worthy of her title. It would be a catastrophic act of self-sabotage. But to side with Camilla, to rebuke his own sister, would mean alienating one of his fiercest and most loyal allies. It would mean defying the powerful traditionalist wing of the establishment who secretly believe Anne is right. It would be seen as a final, callous betrayal of his mother's true memory, in favor of the woman who caused her so much pain. His decision, or rather his terrified lack thereof, has already sent devastating tremors through the palace walls. He is a king, split in 2, torn between legacy and love, between the suffocating weight of the past and his desperate hope for the present. Every joint appearance of the 3 is now a moment of unbearable tension, a public performance scrutinized by the world for the tiniest signs of the ongoing war. Every family gathering, once a private affair, is now a potential minefield, an opportunity for the next devastating bombshell to explode. Charles had desperately hoped his reign would be one of smooth transition, of calm, modern stability after the turbulent final years of his mother's rule. But instead, it is being defined by this bitter, ugly, and deeply personal feud between the 2 women who should be his greatest allies. He is facing an impossible choice, a choice that will forever alter the balance of power within his fractured family, and one that could very well determine the future of his entire reign. Just as the old fiery rivalry with Princess Anne continues to burn with a white-hot intensity, a new, much colder war is being waged within the palace walls. It is a silent, unspoken power struggle, a battle fought not with angry words, but with subtle gestures and icy smiles. It is the undeclared war between Queen Camilla and Catherine, the beloved Princess of Wales. When a young Kate Middleton first entered the notoriously difficult royal family, the late Queen Elizabeth II immediately saw in her a calm, dedicated, and deeply graceful young woman, someone who possessed the rare dignity and quiet strength to one day wear the crown. The Queen's approval was instant and total, but palace insiders have long reported that Camilla's initial reaction was far, far frostier. Whispers immediately began to circulate through the back corridors of the palace. Camilla, they said, was deeply wary of Kate's soaring, almost instantaneous popularity. She was concerned, even fearful, of being overshadowed by a younger, more beautiful, and infinitely more glamorous royal. As Kate's fame skyrocketed, so too did the unspoken, chilling tension between the two women. The public adored Catherine. They loved her flawless poise, her impeccable style, and the truly effortless way she seemed to handle the immense, crushing pressures of royal life. In the public's eyes, Kate Middleton was perfection. She seemed to be everything that Camilla had struggled so desperately and for so long to become: beloved, universally respected, and effortlessly regal. This stark, brutal contrast between them created a clear, undeniable, but completely unsaid rivalry. In the silent, gilded theatre of the royal court, where a single, fleeting glance can speak volumes, and a moment of silence can be more damning than a shouted accusation, this subtle, vicious competition has become a defining feature of the new Carolian age. It is a quiet, deadly battle for influence, for public affection, and ultimately, for the very soul of the modern monarchy. But the worst was yet to come. But the simmering tension between Camilla and the younger generation of royals is most chillingly and most dangerously embodied in her fraught relationship with Prince William. Diana's beautiful, tragic spirit hangs over every single interaction they are forced to share. William is not just the heir to the throne. He is the son of the woman Camilla so ruthlessly replaced. He is a living, breathing reminder of the family's greatest, most traumatic wound. Insiders and royal authors have described their relationship as one of professional courtesy, a carefully constructed facade that masks a deep, cold, and utterly unbridgeable gulf. On the surface, William is faultlessly polite. He is correct, he plays his part. But there is always a visible, painful coldness, a carefully maintained distance that speaks to a profound, private pain that has never truly healed. One must never forget, he was just a teenager when he was forced to confront the emotional wreckage of his parents' toxic, collapsed marriage. He was forced to watch his beloved mother crumble under the weight of his father's infidelity. Those horrific, deeply traumatic scars run deeper than anyone can possibly know. People who have observed them together over the years note the same, consistent patterns. William is always on guard, his body language visibly stiff, his smiles strained and never, ever, quite reaching his eyes. He is a man walking a razor-thin tightrope, desperately trying to balance his solemn duty to his father and the monarchy with the raw, personal agony that this connection represents. Camilla is not just his stepmother. She is the living symbol of his mother's misery. This slow, almost imperceptible chill between them is not just the sad result of old wound. It is a ticking time bomb planted at the very heart of the monarchy, its fuse slowly burning down, waiting for the one event that will finally cause it to detonate, the moment William finally takes the throne. Behind the closed, fortified doors of Kensington Palace, nervous courtiers are already whispering about the future. They ask one terrifying question over and over again. What will happen to Camilla when William becomes king? The unspoken, chilling fear is that the heir to the throne holds a very different and far less forgiving vision for her future role. There are quiet but persistent suggestions that upon his accession, William may seek to completely redefine her position. He could potentially strip her of the full, revered status of queen and relegate her to the more minor, ceremonial role of Queen Dowager, the title held by the widow of a king. Such a move would be a stunning, almost unthinkable act of posthumous loyalty to his mother, Diana. It would be the ultimate revenge, a final, brutal settling of scores carried out with the full, terrifying power of the throne itself. For decades, Camilla has worked tirelessly, methodically, to secure her place, a journey that culminated in the crowning achievement of the title of queen. But her position, her power, her very relevance is entirely, perilously dependent on the life and reign of one man, King Charles. The moment William ascends to the throne, the entire power dynamic of the monarchy will shift completely, seismically, and irrevocably. In that instant, the future of her authority, her legacy, and her very place in the royal family will be placed entirely in the hands of the boy whose childhood her actions helped to shatter. The weight of history is a heavy, crushing burden, and many inside the palace believe, with a grim certainty, that when the time finally comes, King William V will finally make her pay the price. The biggest bombshell of all is yet to come. Kate Middleton's astonishing transformation from a modest, middle-class university student into the future Queen of England is the stuff of a modern fairy tale. But beneath the surface, it is also a stunning masterclass in royal strategy, a journey that was meticulously planned and flawlessly executed. Unlike so many others who married into the royal family and were thrust, unprepared and unprotected, into the brutal spotlight, Kate's path was different. She underwent years of private, intensive princess training. For the better part of a decade, she was carefully coached by the palace machine. She meticulously learned the arcane, often baffling rules of royal protocol, the delicate, high-stakes art of international diplomacy, and, most critically, how to withstand the crushing, soul-destroying pressure of constant global media attention. The goal was not simply to make her a princess, it was to forge her into the perfect princess. And they succeeded. Today, she has championed globally recognized causes like early childhood education and mental health awareness, becoming a respected, powerful leader in her own right, moving far beyond the simple role of a royal consort. In the public's imagination, she is seen as nothing less than a reincarnation of Diana's spirit, a glamorous, compassionate, and deeply human figure who, despite her lofty title, remains down-to-earth and fundamentally connected to the people. She is, in every sense, the monarchy's greatest asset, but in a cruel, ironic twist of fate, her very perfection has become a dangerous source of tension within the palace. Her effortless, universal popularity stands in stark, painful contrast to Camilla's hard-won and still desperately fragile public acceptance. Kate is a dazzling symbol of the future, of hope, of moving forward, and of new beginnings. But in the silent, undeclared war being waged within the palace walls, she is also something else. She is a constant, painful, and living reminder to Camilla of the beloved, universally adored queen she herself could never, and will never, be. Nowhere was the raw, brutal power dynamic of the new royal family more visible, or more shocking, than at the historic coronation of King Charles III. While the day should have belonged exclusively to Charles and his newly crowned queen, Princess Anne made a forceful, unforgettable statement of her own. She completely upstaged the main event in her ancient, ceremonial role as the gold stick in waiting, a position historically held by a trusted bodyguard tasked with protecting the monarch from physical harm. Anne rode on horseback directly behind the king and queen's magnificent gold state coach. She was clad in the full, imposing military regalia of the Colonel of the Blues and Royals. It was far more than a simple, charming nod to tradition. It was a breathtaking, audacious power play. Her uniquely prominent position, a role she herself reportedly requested from her brother, the king, ensured that she was a central, unavoidable figure in the day's glorious pageantry. As the world watched Camilla finally receive St. Edward's crown in Westminster Abbey, the cameras continually cut to Anne, astride her magnificent black horse, a powerful, living symbol of ancient authority and raw military might. She was the living embodiment of the unshakable, eternal power of the blood royal. The message was silent, but it was delivered with the force of a cannon blast. It was a message to the world, and more pointedly, a chilling message to her new sister-in-law. Crowns can be given, titles can be granted, but true unassailable status is inherited. It flows through the blood. On the very day that was meant to be Camilla's ultimate, final triumph, the culmination of a 50-year struggle, Princess Anne made it devastatingly, humiliatingly clear who still held the real, undeniable, and absolute power within the ancient House of Windsor. In the wake of Princess Anne's shocking public confrontation, the carefully constructed, decades-old facade of royal unity has not just cracked, it has crumbled into dust. The palace is now a house bitterly and dangerously divided, with terrified courtiers and household staff forced to navigate a treacherous, poison-filled landscape of shifting allegiances and secret loyalties. Whispers, laced with venom and fear, now travel through the ancient corridors of Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle. They carry hushed, paranoid details of a silent, vicious clash of wills that now plays out in every single royal interaction. Nothing is innocent anymore. A simple invitation to tea is no longer a polite gesture. It is a political maneuver, analyzed for its hidden meaning and strategic intent. A shared carriage ride to a state event is no longer a matter of convenience. It is seen as a powerful statement of alliance, a signal of which side one has chosen in the ongoing war. The family itself is splitting into warring factions. There are the traditionalists, the old guard who stand resolutely with Princess Anne and the sacred memory of Queen Elizabeth II. They believe Anne is the true defender of the faith, the last bastion of decency in a crumbling institution. Then there are the modernizers, the pragmatists who believe that for the monarchy to survive, it must rally around its new king and support his chosen queen, no matter how distasteful her past may be. The tension has been described by one insider as being thick enough to cut with a knife. This is no longer just a petty family squabble over precedence and titles. This is a brutal, existential battle for the very soul of the institution itself. The old guard is clashing violently with the new, and the conflict threatens to paralyze the monarchy from within, creating a toxic, suffocating atmosphere of suspicion, paranoia, and deep intrigue not seen since the dark, desperate days of the abdication crisis of 1936. The monarchy is eating itself alive, and this bitter, deeply destructive internal war could not have possibly come at a worse time. The monarchy, an ancient institution already severely weakened by the horrifying scandals surrounding Prince Andrew and the acrimonious, scorched-earth departure of Harry and Meghan, is more fragile today than it has been in generations. The public's once unwavering trust is rapidly wavering, and the institution's very relevance in the 21st century is being questioned daily, openly, and aggressively. Into this precarious, volatile environment comes the ugly, unseemly spectacle of the senior royals engaged in a vicious, high-stakes power struggle over titles, tradition, and the ghosts of the past. It projects a fatal image to the world, that of a hopelessly dysfunctional, breathtakingly out-of-touch dynasty, completely consumed by its own petty, narcissistic dramas, while the world outside its palace walls burns. Princess Anne's stand, while fiercely principled in her own eyes, risks exposing a fatal, irreparable crack in the crown's very foundation. It suggests a house so deeply and poisonously divided that it cannot even govern itself, let alone provide a stable, unifying symbol for a nation in crisis. Royal observers, speaking in hushed, fearful tones, now openly worry that this conflict is not just another passing royal storm, but the beginning of the end for the monarchy as we know it. They fear it is a fatal, self-inflicted wound, one that could prove absolutely lethal in an increasingly skeptical and unforgiving modern world. In their desperate, obsessive fight over the past, the royals may be in the process of sacrificing their entire future. Sadly, it was the beginning of the end. And so, in the end, after a lifetime of relentless striving, the question of Camilla's legacy remains tragically, painfully unresolved. She has a king's undying love, and she wears a queen's priceless crown, but she will never, ever have peace. The beautiful, vengeful ghosts of the past are simply too powerful, and they are relentless. They are championed by a fiercely protective and unforgiving Princess Anne. They are embodied in the flawless, effortless perfection of Princess Catherine, and they are remembered with a cold and quiet fury deep in the wounded heart of the future king, Prince William. Camilla's story, in the end, is a grim, cautionary tale, a brutal lesson about the corrupting nature of ambition and the inescapable, destructive power of secrets. She played the long game, a game that spanned 50 years of scandal, heartbreak, and cunning strategy, and she won. She won her king. But in a final, devastating twist of fate, she may have lost the far greater war for history itself. Her reign, however long or short it may be, will forever be marked by controversy. Her legitimacy will always be questioned, and her public image will forever be haunted by the long, dark shadow of the sainted woman she so ruthlessly replaced. In a life defined by a single, obsessive goal, she climbed to the very top of the world, only to find herself more isolated, more embattled, and more alone than ever before. She is a queen in title, but she will forever remain a mere consort in the hearts of those who matter most. Her very presence on the throne, intended to be a symbol of a king's enduring love, may instead be her final, devastating legacy, a symbol not of unity, but of the unending, tragic, and perhaps fatal fractures within the broken House of Windsor. Thank you for watching Majesty Uncovered. What are your thoughts on this royal bombshell? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to Majesty Uncovered for more untold stories. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Goodbye for now. Video description. *** illustration image prompts. *** 1. A hyper-realistic, cinematic wide shot of a grand royal dining hall in Buckingham Palace. The table is lavishly set with gold cutlery, crystal glasses, and elaborate floral arrangements under immense golden chandeliers. The atmosphere is thick with unspoken tension. Guests in formal attire look stiff and uncomfortable. Dramatic chiaroscuro lighting, casting long, ominous shadows across the opulent room. AR-16-9 AS-750, style RAW, Q2. 2. An ultra-sharp, photorealistic close-up of Princess Anne's face, aged 70 seconds. Her expression is one of cold, steely resolve, her eyes sharp and unblinking. The lighting is harsh and direct, highlighting every line on her face, making her look formidable and powerful. The background is the blurred opulence of a royal banquet, focusing all attention on her unwavering, lethal gaze. AR-16-9 S-750 style RAW Q2. 3. A cinematic, photorealistic shot of Queen Camilla's face, capturing the exact moment of shock and humiliation. Her eyes are wide, her mouth slightly agape, a perfectly applied facade of regal composure shattering. A single teardrop glistens under the harsh ballroom lighting, reflecting the golden chandeliers. The focus is soft, creating a dreamlike, nightmarish quality. RAW-16-9 S-750 style RAW Q2. 4. A dramatic, low-angle shot from behind King Charles's shoulder, looking at Princess Anne and Queen Camilla at opposite ends of a long dining table. The king is a tense silhouette in the foreground, caught in the middle. The space between the two women feels vast and charged with energy, the air almost crackling with hostility. The scene is lit like a classic film noir, with deep shadows and high contrast. AR-16-9 S-750 style RAW Q2. 5. A symbolic, hyper-detailed image of a magnificent royal crown sitting on a velvet cushion with a deep, dramatic crack running through it. Shards of light emanate from the crack, suggesting a catastrophic failure. The background is dark and indistinct, focusing entirely on the broken symbol of the monarchy. AR-16-9 S-750 style RAW Q2. Lil. A vintage-style, photorealistic flashback to the 1970 seconds, showing a young Princess Anne and a dashing cavalry officer, Andrew Parker Bowles, sharing an intimate, loving glance at a polo match. The colors are slightly faded, evoking a sense of lost time and tragic romance. The sunlight is golden and warm, contrasting with the cold reality of the present. AR-16-9 S-750 style RAW Q2. 7. A powerful, cinematic shot of Princess Anne at the coronation, on horseback, in full military regalia. The camera is positioned low, looking up at her, making her appear dominant and iconic. Her face is set with grim determination as she rides just behind the gold state coach, a look of fierce protectiveness in her eyes. AR-16-9 S-750 style RAW Q2. 8. A moody, atmospheric shot inside a long, shadowed corridor of Buckingham Palace. Two indistinct figures of royal courtiers are seen whispering conspiratorially in the distance, their forms nearly lost in the gloom. The only light comes from a distant window, casting long, distorted shadows that crawl up the ancient walls, creating a sense of paranoia and intrigue. AR-16.9 S-750 style RAW Quietly 2. Illustration image prompts 16:9 1080p. SEO tags. Princess Anne, Queen Camilla, King Charles, Royal Family, British Monarchy, Royal Scandal, Royal Feud, Buckingham Palace, House of Windsor, Princess Diana, Royal Family Drama, Queen Elizabeth, Andrew Parker, Bowles, Coronation, Royal Secrets, British Royals, Untold Story, Royal History. SEO tags. English. Thumbnail prompts. 1. A dramatic split-screen thumbnail. On the left, an extreme close-up of Princess Anne's eyes, narrowed and filled with cold fury. On the right, an extreme close-up of Queen Camilla's eyes, wide with shock and a single tear falling. The lighting is high contrast, with a glowing, cracked line separating the two faces. AR 16:9.750 Style RAW Q2. 2. An eye-catching thumbnail showing Princess Anne in sharp focus on the left, her expression severe, and her mouth open as if speaking a harsh truth. On the right, slightly behind her and in soft focus, a devastated Queen Camilla reacts with horror. The colors are saturated, and a bold, dramatic text overlay says Royal War Declared. AR 16:9S750 Style RAW Com2. 3. A highly symbolic thumbnail featuring a photorealistic, elegant hand, Princess Anne's, pointing an accusing finger across a dinner table. The target of the finger is a royal crown on the other side, which is beginning to shatter and crumble into dust. The image is clean and powerful, with a dark, luxurious background. AR 16.9 S750 Style RAW.Q2. 4. A close-up shot of Queen Camilla, looking regal but anxious, with a ghostly, semi-transparent image of a stern-faced Princess Anne superimposed over her face. The effect is haunting and suggests Anne is a constant, looming presence. The lighting is ethereal and moody, with blue and gold tone. AR 16.9.750 Style RAW Com2. 5. An intense, cinematic thumbnail from the perspective of a guest at the royal feast. The viewer sees Princess Anne's profile in the foreground as she glares across the table. In the distance, a small, shocked figure of Queen Camilla is the focal point, with the king looking on helplessly beside her. The depth of field is shallow, creating a voyeuristic "you are there" feeling of immense tension. R 16:9.750 Style RAW.Q2. Thumbnail prompts 16:9 p. Engaging thumbnail concepts. Generation summary. Channel name used. Majesty uncovered. Opening hook. Generated 10 to 20 second attention grabber. Total characters 39201. Chapters generated 18. Language English. Knowledge sections applied 12/12. Cultural elements preserved. Yes. Enhanced features. Complete package ready.